Okay, so this is a very last minute kind of video. Saturday evening, it was revealed that the television show Heroes is going to be returning in the year 2015 as a 13 episode miniseries. For those who do not know, Heroes was a show that started in 2006, I believe. It lasted 4 years. It ended in 2010. So by the time the show returns, it will have been 5 years since it ended. And I am not one of the people that was overly in love with this show. I watched it for 3 years. I was actually a little late to the party, so to speak. By the time I started watching it, the first 2 seasons had already aired and were already over with, and I watched the first 2 seasons online, and then I watched season 3 as it was happening, and then when season 3 ended, I washed my hands of the whole thing. I was done with it, and I think a lot of people were like that too. And I'm really kind of shocked that this show is returning. I didn't actually think the show was ever that good. A lot of people, pretty much anyone who ever saw the show, is going to say the first season was really awesome, and then starting with season 2, it got really, really bad. I am going to blow your mind, if you're interested in my opinion that is, and tell you that season 1, really not that good. There's some good ideas there. I think the broad strokes of the story is pretty interesting. The problem is the story is like 25 episodes long, and a lot of that season was really just them dragging their heels trying to stretch out this story that did not need to be 25 episodes long, and the pacing was just really, really slow and not that good. I have tried rewatching season 1 maybe 5 times, and always I get maybe 6 episodes in and then I just can't do it. That show is just not a show that I can go back and rewatch. I think maybe part of the reason people look back so fondly on that show is that they were so enthralled by what the mystery of the show was. Where did all of these superpowers come from? What is the company? What does it mean to save the cheerleader, save the world? These mysteries kept people watching the show, but if you already know the answers to most of these mysteries, and then you try and go back and rewatch the show, I think most people will find that the show is not nearly as good as they remember it being. And likewise, I will doubly blow your mind, I did not think season 2 was as bad as everyone else said. I will grant you that it was not very good, but I don't think that it was a horrible, horrible season. I think the biggest problem that season had was that it took about 8 episodes to get to the story, and that whole story is only 10 episodes long. That season was cut down pretty short thanks to the writer's strike, and I've said before on this channel, the writer's strike is a big reason why that show went so downhill after season 2. Season 3 is just awful because of a couple of decisions that they made leading up to season 3. They made one really, really fatal decision in my opinion. I've talked about this before. I'm not going to get into it again. So this video is going to be me reacting to the return of Heroes. And like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of the series, so I don't really see the appeal of bringing it back. I'm seeing a lot more people who are much, much more excited about this than I am. Personally, I feel like if you are going to do a sequel to something, it needs to be earned. It needs to deserve to have a sequel. And Heroes, even at its best, did not deserve a return after 5 years of being off the air. I really don't think that it's right when you have significantly better shows out there that were canceled and they are not going to get a sequel or a return, but then you have something like Heroes, which really floundered for about 3 years, and that show is getting a return. Also, pragmatically speaking, I don't see how this is going to be a thing. I don't see how Heroes is going to be able to pull in much of an audience other than the people who watched the show 5 years ago. I really don't see this return of the series bringing in new fans who never watched the show. A big problem that this series had was that unless you were watching from the very beginning, you weren't really going to understand what's going on. And I don't mean if you've never seen the show and you watch it and you don't get it, then you're stupid. I don't mean that. I mean that this show was very continuity heavy. It was very much involved in itself, and unless you had seen everything, you were going to be confused. And I feel like taking a 5-year gap in between season 4 and the return of Heroes, that is not going to do this show any favors. And sure, it's possible that this is kind of going to be a clean break and anyone can watch this show. Ideally, that is what it should be. But I don't think it's going to be that. These same people, they had 3 years to redeem their show, and they never took any of those chances. They repeatedly did stupid things to make their show crap, and I just don't see these people suddenly making smart writing decisions in making a show that is a little bit more accessible to everyone. One thing that I have talked about on this channel before is the original plan that Heroes had, where after Season 1, Season 2 was going to be about new characters. You were going to have a couple of the characters from Season 1, they would return, but for the most part, Season 2 would be about more or less a brand new cast, probably about half new characters and half old characters. And one big problem that I think this series had was that they were told, no, you can't do that. People like these characters from Season 1. You have to keep using them. And so they had these characters who had gone through the character arc that they were meant to go through in Season 1, and suddenly the people behind this show, they don't really have anything for these characters to do. So for example, characters like Claire and her father, they kind of have to go through the same character arc each season. And I've talked about that before in a couple of different missed opportunities videos. I've seen a lot of people suggest that maybe this return of the series might be something along those lines, where we might see a couple of the old characters come back, and then it might be more or less a new cast of characters. If they go in that direction, fine, I might be interested in watching it. But I'm really afraid that this is just going to be the same 6 or 7 characters who don't really have any more interesting stories to be told about them, and I'm not really going to be interested in watching Claire yet again discover that she can't trust her father, and then by the end of this 13-episode miniseries, she realizes that her dad just did what he did because he loves her. I really am not interested in seeing that play out for the 5th time. If it is a bunch of new characters and 1 or 2 recurring characters, I would be much more interested in seeing this. Another possibility that I would like to see, Heroes was constantly about trying to prevent a bad future from coming to be. I literally think every single season of this series dealt with prophecies and time travel, seeing the future, and it's this really awful future, and then the characters in the present day are trying to prevent that from happening. I personally would like to see this miniseries actually be a dark future. Now, this show actually had 3 or 4 possible futures that it was dealing with at different points in the series, so it probably wouldn't be any of those futures, but I would kind of like to see a sort of dystopian future, and we could see that because of Claire revealing to the world that people with superpowers exist at the end of the series, now those people are hunted down, and now you have this sort of resistance movement, and you have human beings hunting down the people with powers. If this show wanted to do something like that, I would definitely be interested. But once again, I cannot see the people who were responsible for Heroes Season 2 and 3 doing interesting, good stories with this miniseries. I really feel like this is going to be something where they say, oh, okay, a couple of thousand people were really interested in seeing these characters come back and seeing their stories wrap up. And instead of wrapping up their stories, they're going to end this on another cliffhanger. Heroes was never good about resolving anything. Each season ended on a cliffhanger to try and get you excited for the next season. Even when the series was over, it ended on a cliffhanger. I cannot see this miniseries actually resolving anything, and I know more than a couple of people, the big reason that they are interested in this is to see some resolution to some of those characters and to some of those stories that we saw in the actual series. More than likely, I'm probably not going to watch this, especially if it airs on TV weekly. I really can't see myself investing that much time in it. If this is something kind of like what Marvel is planning on doing with their TV shows that are going to be going up on Netflix, where an entire season goes up on Netflix all in one day, I might give it a shot. But I'm more than likely not going to watch this. I was never this show's biggest supporter, even at its best. I don't think it was that great of a show. But I am curious to see what you guys think, and since the internet has seemingly exploded at this news, I'm sure you guys are more excited than I am if you are part of the internet exploding, so let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you liked this video, if you liked what I had to say here, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And in the meantime, I will be back tomorrow with some other kind of video. So until then, I will see you guys later. Have a great day.